What is he like as a woman in the Nigerian corporate world?
I was very focused. And then the luck part was I had, they say you should have mentors and you should have sponsors. So I would say that I had some good sponsors that advised me or dragged me along when they were moving. Look at when I moved to Airtel, I was one of the people that did the short codes, the USSD short codes for banking.
I wanted you to clarify. You said it's a man that will still open the door of the room for you to get in. Is it as a result of the number of men, or is it as a result of some women are not just willing to open the door for other women to come in?
Problems happen in businesses no matter how good the founder is. So I think Nigeria's done exceptionally well in terms of, and we are leading the fintechs, the innovation. And what I really would say is exciting about Nigeria is that we are thriving in spite of Nigeria.
Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of the Mini Money Show. Today we have a fantastic guest in the house. I tried to look up a profile and I just didn't know how to start because, she started her career very, very early. So I'm just going to introduce her. Her name is Yewande Adewusi. Currently, she's the CEO of Alethea Capital, but I'll let her do some of the other introductions of what things that she's done in the past. So welcome, Yewande.
Hi, good to be here. So what do you want to know?
Just give us a brief background. I don't know what is because I checked. You started from, is it Airtel or where?
No, I started as a pharmacist.
Okay.
I trained as a pharmacist. I was a clinical pharmacist in the UK, and then I came back to Nigeria and started working at Pfizer.
Okay.
It was just one of those lucky breaks, really, to be honest with you. Business development and strategy, bringing new products into the market at the time. And then someone met up with me and said, "Oh, you love strategy. Do you want to come and do strategy in a bank?" And when you're young and not really smart about it, you're just like, "Oh, yeah, sure." So then I got a job at UBA, United Bank for Africa, and I was in the strategy and business transformation team there for a few years, and it was great. It was post-consolidation, so banks had money, all sorts of projects happening, so it was a good time to be there. And thereafter, I moved to, very briefly, Oceanic Bank, but we won't talk about that. That's like a blip, move on. And then I moved to EFINA, Enhancing Financial Inclusion and Access. I was managing the Innovation Fund there. I was Deputy CEO. Very fun times there. I've been thrown out of so many offices talking about financial inclusion, so to see it mainstream now is quite exciting. And digital financial services, I got called the OG of mobile money recently. I was like, oh my God, that doesn't sound nice, but yes. And thereafter, I decided I'm tired of advising and consulting on the issue. I wanted to implement. So I moved to Airtel to head their mobile financial services here. But that was also like an interesting time because the central bank was totally against telcos doing that. So that was a learning curve of understanding policy, again, on the different side from EFINA, and trying to make change then. Partnerships with banks. Partnerships are hard. And thereafter I decided I don't want to work at all. I said, I want to be a housewife. My husband looked at me for 5 seconds and says, "You're going to last 2 minutes," which was true. I literally quit and then I got a job 2 weeks later. Totally different sector. BBC, where I started off as a West Africa commercial lead and then it rose up to being the regional director for Sub-Saharan Africa. Total different sector. It was like I was having
When
fun.
I saw that, I was wondering, like,
it was just having fun for several years, but the several years was actually 6 years. But it was an interesting departure from financial services and all that. And then I realized, I was put on the board of something, and I realized how much I missed financial services in some capacity. So I went to work at Tangerine as executive director commercial there, and that was fun. Insurance is a total different animal from banking, so I don't know. I will think about whether I go back to that side of the street. And then I decided, then someone said, with all your experience, you should be an operator in a fund. I didn't even know what that meant. And I was like, I looked it up in terms of, he said, they don't really have it here, but in the abroad, it's quite a common thing. So when an opportunity came up for it, it was like, do you want to be the CEO and operator in a fund? And I was like,
why not?
Why not? So I find myself in Alethea, but what's exciting about Alethea is two things. We have two funds, and one is giving access to our Gender Lens Fund, which is the Alethea Idea Fund. So intentionally giving funding to women-owned, women-led, majority of women in management businesses, growth stage businesses, and then on the VC side, well, growth stage VC, inclusivity leveraging tech, which brings back my love for the financial inclusion and fintech and other. But what's really exciting about Alethea is our investment in real sector. Not a lot of funds do that. So we have a lot of investments in agribusiness and manufacturing. So it's exciting seeing that because I've always been in the whole tech thing, and it's nice to see someone saying they've hired 400 people in a factory, and that knock-on effect on growth, wealth creation, and all that. So yeah, so there you go.
That's great. I mean, you've had quite an interesting career. It's a big roller coaster from pharmaceuticals, to finance, to media, back to finance, insurance, then now VC or PE fund. So I guess your experience is really, really going to tell in this particular episode because we have a lot of angles that I believe that you'll be able to shed a bit more light. But let's dial it back a little bit, right? Something has probably informed a lot of your decision making. Something has probably informed your person, and I believe that some of those things started while you were early. So, what were you like growing up, or what was your family like growing up in terms of finance, money? Were you born into privilege? Was there a time where there was a dip? You know, how was that like for you?
Born into privilege. That sounds so wrong and politically incorrect to
Is it?
say. I don't know. It just sounds funny, but let me park it right there. But I would say yes. And then one thing that was quite telling for me, my dad died when I was 9.
Ooh.
Right. My mom was 36. He was 41. And this is someone who was, I would say my mom was quite, I don't want to use the word spoiled, but she was quite cute. I mean, she had a career and all that, but she wasn't managing those things. My dad did most things, but she put on her big belt girl pants and had to just get on with it. And she always has. So I think I saw that from a very young age. And she has sisters that also took on, they're very strong women I'm surrounded by. So there's no excuses. If you want something, and they have a tendency, if whatever situation is around them, someone is saying no and they want it, they just find a way to make it happen. So growing up around that, I think really informs what I've gone through in terms of I'm not going to wait for someone to give it to me. If that's what I want, I have to go and pursue it. So I think I always wonder if my dad was still alive, would I be one of those laid back ladies? Who knows? But yeah, I'll say that really quite informed. And then being surrounded by those type of women that they just get on with it. They're not waiting for someone to magically come and save them. My mom would say, no one's coming to save you. And that's another thing I've always taken, that if you want to get on with life, you just have to get on with it.
That's interesting. So, how much the loss of your dad after he passed away, did it affect your family finance? You talked about your mom had to like stand up and just get things done. But how much did that affect you guys, and how were you able to pull through that?
Looking back, I mean, she made everything seem like
It was easy.
it was easy.
Yeah.
And she had like a backup plan. Not necessarily from my dad. It was just a backup from her family situation. So I would say that she was very conscious in terms of, she always said, I don't want you to ever say, if my dad was alive. So she was very, I mean, I had the latest, I mean, boys always used to think, how did she, I mean, Air Jordans are trendy now, but so you're going to be taking it back. As the Air Jordan was coming off the conveyor belts, those days, I had it. And, you know, the games, Super Nintendo, this one, that, every console coming out. So it was a case, I didn't know whether it was difficult. I think when I noticed when it was getting hard was, you know, devaluation has happened over a period of time. So by the time I went into university, to England for A levels, and by the time I was leaving university, graduating, she had a party, just to call it the end of school fees party. She didn't care what I got. So that's when I realized it must have been really tough. She was just like, you're done? You're done? Oh, wow, let's have a party. And she literally had a party for end of school fees, and there was a cake and everything, and she was very excited. She didn't.
Finally, I'm done.
I'm done with this. I'm done. So that's what I would say. That you've got to have a plan for the backup plan sometimes, and I think that's something that I'm very conscious of. Yeah.
All right. So, thankfully, a lot of the things that you're talking about, I'm just finding out, just like every other viewer, So it's actually helping me to shape some of my questions to you. So, how much of effort or how much of credit do we need to discount from people that actually come from a bit of privilege or generational wealth, so to speak? Because you just touched on, okay, my mom also had, your mom also had a family that they were basically doing okay. I have a reason for asking that question, but I'd like you to touch on that before I sort of like thinking points.
Generational wealth, if managed well, it gives you options. So my mom had options. She wasn't forced into anything. My dad died, he died, and then she was like, okay, what do I do now? And because she had that, I would say, nest egg of generational wealth, she was able to maintain the standard of living that we were used to. I don't think it was easy, obviously, because she wasn't the one doing 100% before. She was doing very little before, but because she had that, she was, and she had to make choices. I mean, literally, if I look back now, she hadn't. I don't think she should have sent one abroad. You know what I mean? Thinking about it, because that was a huge dip into that generational wealth. You can't recoup investment in education like stocks and bonds. Mm-hmm. You're investing in the person's education. I hope they do well. So I would say that also influences my work, because I can't imagine all the money she spent on me and I come back and be a bum. So I think it's important for people to plan. You're not trying to have generational wealth to make your child spoiled. You're just trying to have generational wealth so they have options. So yeah.
All right. So the reason why I touch on that is I see a lot of people try to sort of not give credit to people that probably have options, just because they come from, say, privileged background or something, and they basically want to discount their efforts and just want to charge everything to, it's because your dad is rich or it's because your mom is rich. That is why this you are this successful, basically.
I think access to generational wealth. You can have access and do nothing with it. You can literally open the toilet and flush all the money down, right? And then some people can have access to that and use it as a stepping stone to greater things. So I don't think it should be discounted. I don't have to rough it from ground zero to make me a valid human being, but I could also get it and squander it.
Yeah.
So the fact that the person had it and didn't squander it and has made something of themselves, whether in their career or entrepreneurial pursuits or whatever, having a stepping stone and not having to completely rough it from ground zero doesn't make you less of a successful person, or it's giving you too much of a leap, because anything can happen.
Yeah.
Nigeria is happening to us all. No matter your generational wealth right now, Nigeria is doing you. So I think that no one should be discounted for that. I think you should be worse when you have it and you now squander it. Yeah.
Now let's talk about your career progression. There is a lot of talk, a lot of chat about the imbalance, especially in the corporate world. I think we have more of that in the Western world in terms of conversation than over here. But I want you to, first of all, before we even talk about any other thing, what is it like as a woman in the Nigerian corporate world? What is it like in relation to how easy or how it is like for you to grow in the corporate world, and as of course as against other men? How was it like for you?
Would I say I'm lucky? No, I wouldn't say I'm lucky. I was very focused. And then the luck part was I had, they say you should have mentors and you should have sponsors. So I would say that I had some good sponsors that advised me or dragged me along when they were moving, right? I had really hardcore bosses as well that would tell you, you're a woman to be in this, when I think I was in my early 20s. And I had a boss that was like, to be in this room. I was a analyst or whatever, and she would just say, she was the CEO, and she'll say, to be in this room, do you know how hard it is for a woman to be in this room? Because she was the only woman in the room. And I always held on to that it's not about, once you get in the room, one thing you have to realize, a man probably allowed you into the room in the first place. Just take it to the bank.
We'll get there.
Most cases, a man is already in the room. So to allow women into the room, it's typically going to be a man. Sometimes now, a woman that has entered the room should make sure they drag other women into the room. But more often than not, even now, you'll find there are more men in the room. And so you have to have a man so when people say, oh, the women agenda, international, I say, it's a man that has to advocate. Women have to advocate for other women. But men have to advocate for women. That is the best person for the role that should come into the room. And I think that has been something I've been very conscious of in terms of when I'm working with younger staff, female staff, in terms of you can't bring excuses to the room. Nobody wants to hear that. Do you get what I mean? Not that nobody cares, but nobody cares, So you have to, and you remember you'll have to work, you'll find that, it's changing now a bit, but to be in the room, you have to work twice as hard. You can't talk about...
As a woman?
As a woman. You can't bring, I've got my kids, you got to organize yourself. And I think, again, I keep saying I go back to my mom. She's going to be like, you really love me this way? When I first had my son, I was in my first child. I was in Athena then, and there's this book Gina Ford that says baby led this, baby whatever that. Mom said, come on. We will time this child to death. I was like, no. She said, you're going back to work. Who's gonna listen to you? You want to be this big shot in the office. You don't want to be the one that's quiet, just coasting on the same level for 500 years. You want to be the one that's going up and up and up. You can't have this child disrupt that. You have to have a situation in place. And I'm always very open with people in terms of I have a team that allows me to be who I am. The nanny, the this, the that, the whatever. I'm very present. You must read and write to work with me because I send WhatsApp to everybody, and I have everything is printed all over the house. I send WhatsApp 5. Your wife knows me. 5:30 in the morning, I'm at the swimming pool. Everybody, you go into the pool 5:30 before you go to? Yeah, I go to the pool, and so 5:30 I do that, checking homework, doing all sorts. Send the nanny a message. He has a after school lesson. He has piano at this time. So everybody and my children have grown up knowing to check the wall that there's something printed, or I'm going to send a message to somebody. So you must build that structure as well to succeed because your home is your home. You can't really drop. Some people do, but I personally take very much pride in being very active in my kids' lives, active in making sure my home is on point. But I would never lie and say I'm the one doing it all by myself. But
at the end of the day, you said you have a team. So however it is done, if it's through other people, so far it's getting done.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned something that actually just dawned on me, right? Because I always hear that women say you have to work twice as hard. And my only thinking when I hear that statement is, okay, you have to work twice as hard in the work environment, but which is not the case. The way you broke it down, because you still have to be a mother, you still have to be a wife, and at the end of the day, you still have to be able to be at par with other people in the room that you are in. So now I totally understand it. Mm-hmm. So well done to all the women out there. Mm-hmm. The other thing I wanted you to clarify, you said it's a man that will still open the door of the room for you to get in. Is it as a result of the number of men, or is it as a result of some women are not just willing to open the door for other women to come in?
It's a mix, though. I think, first of all, there are more men already in the room.
Yeah.
So you have to have those men that are advocates for women, because the default setting is to, like what I just said, I never bring my personal issues to the office. Do you get what I mean? I sort it out. And so you have to be like them, because it's not like they don't understand. And there's a lot of empathy now. I would say post-COVID, you can bring your issues to anywhere and say, hey, I'm not joining the call physically because, quite frankly, let's just do it virtually. Why do I need to be in front of your face? I think COVID brought humanity to the corporate world, definitely. But prior to that, you had to pony up. And you can't say, oh gosh, I'm in this meeting, it's going on late. Oh, my kids are stuck. You have to figure it out. And the people who vocalize those things, it sometimes worked against you. Do you know what I mean? Because it becomes, if there's a project and they know that they're trying to select who's going to be on it, she's going to complain now that we're keeping her late for whatever. And that's how you advance. These special projects, I always say to people, if there's a special project that's outside your scope of work, you need to nominate, put your hand up that you want to do it. Because going above and beyond is how you get promoted, not for doing the bare minimum. So if you're whinging as they brought you onto the project, it's not going to be a great look.
And they won't call you back on the
They won't call you back on the next one.
Nobody wants to work with you again.
Yeah, it's one of those situations. Mm-hmm.
Well, that's interesting. That's very, very interesting. Man, I have a lot more respect, now, because if you're looking at things from the lens of a man, you probably wouldn't. There will be a lot of blind spots that you wouldn't just see. That's why conversations like this are very, very important. Now let's go into pay equality or inequality. I don't know. However, anybody wants to look at it. I think one of the things that when it comes to feminism, one of the key aspects that a lot of people, I believe, can get behind is, pay equality. Like if I'm going to do the same, so I'm holding a role, I'm leaving, you want to hire someone else, and you saw that a woman is coming in, and then you feel like reducing the pay just because of gender. Like, of course, no. So, have you ever experienced something like that? Or have you heard of things like that?
I don't think I've experienced it because you're not supposed to know other people's salaries, is it? But I do say that you should try and find out what the range is. Do some sort of background research. But I will say, I know one time I heard this story where the hiring manager says to the woman, why do you need so much money? Isn't your husband providing for you? And I was a young whippersnapper, but when you hear such things, I'm like, what is my husband and my salary got to do with anything? Either you want to pay me for the work I'm doing or not. Don't bring that I'm married or not. So, okay, if I'm single and cold, you pay me time, don't double.
Exactly.
So I think that is the type of inappropriate talk that sometimes happens. Behind the scenes as well, there is that bias where you'll find out there's a guy on the same level as you that earns a lot more than you. There is a conscious effort now in terms of the whole balance of salaries and all of that, people being more transparent about it. But we know that, if you don't know, you don't know. But you're hoping that the HR, and this is again where you say, HR is full of a lot of women.
So
why? So they should be, helping that situation out. But it comes. It's a balance. It's a trade-off. So I think that the more there's a bit more transparency in salaries, the less this will happen. It should be about what you're bringing. If a woman is less experienced, fair enough. But if they're same experience or whatever, then why are they being paid differently?
So in terms of, let's go back to growth. So in terms of growth, there's a higher role opened, and maybe the woman is more qualified, or maybe has more experience. Have you ever experienced or heard something like, okay, they would just rather want to choose the man to that role? And how much of it is because of what you talked about, saying that, okay, maybe when there's a special project and then maybe the woman is maybe bringing some of our issues at home to work?
There's bias. All of us have bias.
Yeah.
Let's not lie. I have bias, you have bias,
Yes.
Everybody has bias. So to say that the reason behind the bias is the issue.
Yeah.
Right? So some people just want to work with men, and that's fine. That's your cup of tea. Some people would rather have a team of women because they know they feel that they're not going to usurp them. It can be a guy whose entire team is full of women because he knows they'll get the job done. There's a difference of approach. They always say that the whole diversity and inclusion thing in terms of gender in boards, in terms of management, in terms of teams, is because you'll get different ways of thinking. If people realize the reason why your team should be diverse is that a woman will think about the problem totally different from the way a man will think about the problem. And then by the time you merge it all together, it will make a good product or service, right? Because you're thinking about it from the lens of who's the end user. You cannot sit by yourself and create products for women. We're not having a woman on the team. I mean, when I look at them, like, you're creating diapers and there's no woman in your team. How many times have you changed a diaper? Or something like, or lotion or something. I know they'll say do a focus group, but if you had a woman on the team, you'd probably or management, there's certain things that just think about that it's just easier. So I think diversity of thought is what we should think about when we're hiring, in terms of, do we need another guy on this team, or would it make sense to have a woman on the team? Yeah.
Great. So now you are on the other end. You've left the operator side of things. Now you're you're still an operator, but you've left where the debt is, and more to the higher level where you now pick and choose where to deploy a lot of capital. First of all, how is that going so far? You're a year in now, or 9 months?
10 months.
10 months.
Yeah.
How is that going?
It's all right. It's interesting.
I saw the write-up. You said 6. I think it was 6 months. Right?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, it's been a very interesting ride. I've been told I'm not allowed to share the trade secrets because I've seen a lot of them so far very quickly. Founders are very, you get all sorts of founders. But when you have a really good, diligent, resilient, focused founder, that's their business, is their jam, is their child. It's amazing to watch. That's when I really get excited, because if you think about it, an operator in a fund, typically when I'm called in is when there are problems.
Yeah.
So, but when you get to experience where there and problems happen in businesses, no matter how good the founder is. So let's put it like that. But I just think the excitement is watching founders with that passion are able to take counsel and advice, and it's not just that dogged, myopic view on things. They are looking at it widely, trying to understand how to grow their business and scale. It's awesome to see.
Okay, so since you joined the fund now, you probably have a bird's eye view in terms of how certain or almost all industry works. So because people come to you, you see a lot of decks, and you're able to know. So with that bit of information, or with that bit of data that you have now, how would you say women-led companies are doing in relation to being able to have access to capital?
I think that funds like Alethea Capital, through our Alethea IDF fund, there can never be enough of them. I mean, we're the largest gender smart investing fund in Africa.
And that fund is how much?
$102 million on assets under management.
Okay.
But they can never be too much, because if you think about it now, let me tell you what the definition of gender smart investing is. Woman-owned business, majority of women in management, you make products targeting women, or a lot of women in the value chain. The definition had to be broadened, especially at a growth equity stage. If you're doing micro and small businesses, you'll find a lot. But we don't invest at a micro and small stage. We are the growth. You're ready to scale. You have X amount of, So finding those businesses, one, is hard. And two, that whole thing about, getting that mindset of ready for growth and scale. It's a mindset thing that you have to help the founder with, and then them releasing that 100%, because it's sometimes an equity or a mixed play in the investment. So just getting them to understand, to scale and grow bigger than what you are, and you can be bigger. Your name can be known beyond, that little spot in the middle of nowhere. Getting that mindset change is so important, and helping handhold, because it's not about just dumping cash with people. We don't just dump the money and go. We actually support people with, access to market, helping them think out the product strategy, things like that. If you're
If needed.
smooth, if needed. But we still meet with you once a month to say, hey, how's it going? Oh, your numbers did a growth. What did you do? Your numbers dipped. What happened? And especially in this time that the macros have been dealing with businesses, right? You have to help them in terms of how do you stretch the runway of the working capital so they don't run out of money. We have to be on it with that. So I think, but for the female-owned businesses, you find that once you find a gem, right, you really find a gem. And that's not being gender biased. You just find that they really love their businesses and they're committed. It's almost like another child. I'm picturing one of our portfolio companies, and her business is like her child. Her children. I think it's even more important than her children, if she was to be honest about it. And the way she scaled it. I met her way before I joined Alithia. I met her first in 2015. Just randomly went with some women's group to go and visit this factory in the middle of nowhere. And then when I've come back 2024, and I'm like, what?
You're still here.
Not only are you still here,
You're
the
growing.
size of the business, what she's doing, she's exporting to how many countries, and her turnover, you're like, I remember when this thing was she literally just started. It was a nice idea. You thought, oh, lovely jubbly, she'll supply locally here. And she was making a lot of money, don't get me wrong. But to see her now where she's like, if you want to buy my product, this is the cost. Because I have my people that and her standards are global standards that she's put in her business in terms of the product she's doing can compete with any product. It's actually one of the highest qualities in the world. So you just think that they commit deeply to it. So it's interesting to see.
Even if you find a woman as a partner or as an employee that is dedicated, they are always a gem to find. So that's quite interesting. Now, as we round up, I think you probably will still go back to running a company. I definitely think so. But I think your experience, right, as you understand a lot of macroeconomic situations when it comes down to a lot of companies. Now, you worked with Ifina, you've worked with Tangerine. How would you say, or how would you rate Nigeria today, our infrastructure or policies in relation to inclusion, like including other people into the financial system? What do you think we are doing wrong or right? There was an instance recently of people complaining about POSs, right? How they are taking over the ATM machines. A lot of arguments for and against, right? So what do you think? How can you speak to that?
Look, if I tell you when I joined Afina, I can't even say the year because that will just show my age, but I joined Afina in 2009.
Okay.
Right? That's a long time ago. And at that time,
It's probably nothing.
there was nothing.
There was nothing.
There's nothing. You go to banks and you talk to them about mobile payments.
They'll be
They're
like,
looking at you.
Because even telcos have not even grown.
We were, it was still about cards, giving out debit cards, cards, and then where would you use them? You get to a shop, there'll be 10 POSs on the desk. So fast forward, and then by that time, when I was in ENSO, if I look at when I moved to Airtel, I was one of the people that did the short codes, the USSD short codes for banking. I'm still remembering all the situations. I'm sure a lot of people hate me because I had to justify my seat. So there was the bill. I asked for a charging gateway to be purchased of Airtel because I had to justify my payment.
Your bill, yeah.
So, you had to commercialize an asset that normally is just for balance inquiries. So it was for the telco. But I'm like, it's not the telco that's using it, it's the third party. I think Nigeria's done a phenomenal job. Because if you think about what the percentage of excluded was in 2009 and to what it is now, and the way we've adopted things quite broadly. I mean, you can go to the market now. Nobody's going to be asking you, where's your cash? Mama, whatever, is happy transfer. What's your number? Or they have a money point or any points POS. So to have that, before when you're going to the market, you must go and get cash.
Yeah.
Forget it. Nobody's going to collect a card from you or have a POS machine. But now, And I would say, elections last year was a bad thing, but it forced us to go cashless. It was terrible. It was a very terrible experience, but now we're all used to it, to be honest with you. The POS matter is the case of, I don't want to say I'm on the fence. Fees are how payments make money.
Yeah.
And before, in the old days, it was very controlled. CBN set the fee, not on us, all of that stuff, and it was small. So you needed zillions of transactions for it to make sense. Now we know there aren't a zillion of transactions, and then you have a very fragmented financial services. It's not 5 banks, right? It's double-digit worth of banks,
Yeah.
and it's even increased now with the other players, the digital banks and everything, the fintechs and all of that. So yes, sometimes you think about, oh my God, like I went to the beach yesterday, and on the way I needed some cash, and I bought a hat, and the hat was 12,000, but the fee at that POS was 400. That's a bit of
How many percent?
that's a lot.
Because 10% is like 1,200. So you're talking about 3-4% thereabouts.
I don't even know. I can't do the math, but you just think about it that before it would never be that much.
Yeah.
Right. And it was clear. It was like he was making it up as he went along. I did another thing. So for 1,000 withdrawal, they charged me 100 because I needed to pay the parking and I didn't have cash. So I'm thinking about, if you think about financial inclusion, access to everybody, right? How many can a lot of people afford that? But when you need the cash, you need the cash, or you need to make a payment, you need to make a payment, and you adjust. But I think there needs to be a bit of a tightness on consumer protection, because now it's getting it's fluid. It just depends on the POS person. It looks like it's not standardized, unlike before when it was taken at the back end, right? You paid whatever was on the receipt. It's a 1,000 naira. They debit 1,000 naira from you, and then the merchant is going to lose at the other end. But now it's like the merchant is whole.
Oh, yeah. And then
you have to pay. So we have to think about, how do we control that? But in terms of people in the middle of nowhere getting paid,
exactly.
it's amazing to see. I can be in the Mutumbu in Kebi,
Yeah.
and I can get my money. Unlike before, I remember when we were doing conditional cash transfers, we took a bullion van to the village to pay out the cash, which sort of defeated the whole purpose, because the cost of the whole project is all eroded on cash logistics. So I think Nigeria's done exceptionally well in terms of, and we are leading the fintechs, the innovation. And what I really would say is exciting about Nigeria is that we are thriving in spite of Nigeria.
Yeah, in spite. That's
the real thing.
really the word. Like you as well, I'm in defense of that. Before now, I'd already know, so I had a bit of knowledge of how the operations of ATM works. It costs a lot of money to put, and then you didn't make a lot of money. Like you said, CBN is the one setting what they can take from it. Sometimes they'll say, okay, don't take any money anymore. You have to maintain, you have to run the ATM machines. These ATM machines, they don't run on solar or something. You need to diesel everything, So with POSs, so I can understand. But I guess at the end of the day, they will always find a balance. This is what happens all the time. So moving on now, I made a prediction, but maybe after a couple of years we'll get back to that. What do you want to see happen with your new role? What are you setting out to achieve? Not what your employers have set for you, or what did you set for yourself that, okay, you know what, now I have this much power, I can make this certain level of decisions. This is what I want to be able to achieve with my new role.
My new role, I think, is a bit of a mix. I think I've been lucky to find this fund that is focused on 2 things. One, getting capital intentionally in the hands of women or women-owned businesses, women-led businesses. And 2, the other fund, which is inclusivity leveraging tech. So it's amazing. We just talked about now the payments, leveraging technology, you got access to. You wouldn't have the payments before. I can be a farmer in the middle of, there's one of our portfolio companies in Ghana. The farmers harvest their crops. They have created access to markets abroad. So guess what the farmers are earning?
Dollars.
dollars. I'm like
In their local
in their
village
local
or wherever
village
they
or
are.
wherever, to the point where now, from payment systems perspective, the amount of money they're collecting, they need to be banked.
Yeah.
That's exciting for me. It's like we don't need to be the poor little Africans anymore. There's a lot of people going out there finding innovative solutions to real problems. And when you create wealth so that someone can live a dignified life, I think it's so important. I mean, I've always been. Athena's also about that financial inclusion. I've literally always been in that. When I was even at BBC, I was always advocating. We need to tell the positive stories. We need to tell the positive stories. I think they were tired of me, and stuff. But I think in this role, that opportunity to see businesses grow, scale, I mean, we're not doing it altruistically, but it's profit with a purpose, right?
Yeah.
Is what the company is about. And I think it's nice to, for once, that it's aligned with my value system. And I think it's something that I really think is so important, because we know the biases. We talked about it earlier.
Yeah.
You only invest in someone that looks like you. It's not that guys wake up and don't want to invest in women,
Yes.
but you invest in someone that looks like you. So you need to have more funds focused on this, but also more female people allocating capital.
Yep.
And another thing I enjoy about my job is I now understand why I had the journey that I've had so far, and the businesses I've worked in. But the teams always look at me in terms of, how did you even think of that? But because I just moved from one industry to another in my head, I'm like, okay, this is what we do in banking. Okay, this is what we do in media. Okay, this is what we do in pharma. Okay, this is what, it's the sales and marketing. Oh, no, that's not what we do. So it now makes sense. Because before it was like, I looked at I was like, gosh, you've been all over the shop. But I'm very happy to the person that said, why don't you look
Yeah.
at this operator and fund? Because it's been a great use of my career history to apply that to help the company succeed. Yeah.
And on that note, I will end it here. Thank you so much, Yewande.
you for having me.
This was a great episode. Thanks everyone for listening. Remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel, and always remember what we say: gossip sells, but money pays. Thank you.